Since the dawn of awareness, humanity has tried to control everything: nature, fate, even our own emotions. Yet the tighter we grip, the more we realize the world was never ours to command. People change, time fades, bodies wither. Only one thing remains truly ours: the mind. Within it lies fear, gratitude, and the only real freedom. Stoicism doesn't promise to erase pain. It teaches us to face it without breaking. When we stop trying to control the world and begin to master ourselves, we discover a quiet miracle. Peace doesn't come from perfection. It comes from acceptance and from the strength to smile, even when nothing goes our way. Since the dawn of awareness, humanity has struggled endlessly to control the world around it, from nature and fate to the depths of its own emotions. Yet Stoic philosophy reveals a simple but profound truth. Everything we think we possess is, in fact, an illusion. The world does not belong to us. Other people do not belong to us. Even this body we inhabit is never truly ours to keep. The only thing we can truly govern is our mind, the source of every thought, reaction, and decision. Once we understand that, peace becomes possible even amid chaos. For the greatest power lies not in forcing the world to change, but in choosing how we see it. The Stoic philosophers, Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, lived in turbulent times where war, slavery, and loss were constants of life. Yet within that adversity, they discovered their greatest strength: self-mastery. Epictetus, though born a slave, was freer in spirit than many who called themselves noble. He taught that we cannot control what happens to us, only how we respond to it. Seneca, a man of wealth and influence, saw calmness as the mark of true wisdom, the ability to remain balanced between fortune and loss. And for Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, Stoicism was not theory but practice, a compass by which he ruled a world on fire. If we look at the modern world, we find ourselves repeating the same mistake, trying to control everything except ourselves. We rage when misunderstood, despair when plans fall apart, and tremble when we lose what we love. But the Stoic would smile and remind us, that is the nature of life. The world is not against us. It simply does not belong to us. And when we stop demanding that it obey us, we discover a quiet freedom, a deep peace untouched by any external chaos. Stoicism does not teach indifference or apathy. It teaches the art of seeing with reason. It is the discipline of a steady soul amid storms, the ability to stand in the wind and not be carried away. Once we realize emotions are natural reactions, we need not resist them, only observe them and let them pass. Like clouds drifting across the sky, anger and fear dissolve on their own when we do not cling to them. In that moment, we understand true freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever we want, but the freedom not to be ruled by anything. Perhaps the greatest message Stoicism leaves to humanity is this: peace is not found by changing the world, but by changing how we see it. Every day, we can choose to let our minds be ruled by fear and desire, or to live as the Stoic does, to observe, to understand, to accept. When we master our minds, we can stand amid ruins and still smile, walk through pain and not break. The world may not belong to us, but the mind, that small universe within, is the one kingdom we are meant to rule. There is a paradox in modern life. The more people try to control, the more they feel out of control. Every day, we plan, predict, and organize every step of our lives. Yet a single unexpected message, a sudden rainstorm, or a moment of silence can unravel it all. Stoic philosophy does not tell us to abandon effort, but to understand the limits of our power. The world was never designed to obey human will. When we accept that we cannot change the wind, but can adjust our sails, life becomes much lighter. Peace, the Stoic reminds us, does not come from everything going according to plan. It comes from remaining calm, even when it does not. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." The Stoics saw every moment as a gift, because the past is gone, and the future is not yet here. Only the present truly belongs to us. Yet most people let their minds drift between regret and anxiety, missing the only time they actually live, now. Marcus Aurelius urged, "Live as if today were your last day," not in panic, but in awareness. When seen through that lens, anger and envy lose their meaning. We stop competing because we understand that when the final night falls, none of us takes anything with us. To the Stoics, the world itself is neither good nor bad. Only our perception makes it so. A rainstorm may ruin the merchant's day, but bless the farmer's field. The problem is never the rain, but the mind that interprets it. Thus, they train themselves to see life with objectivity, without judgment, without labeling, only with understanding. When we stop attaching emotional weight to every event, we free ourselves from disappointment and fear. We cease being victims of circumstance and become calm witnesses of our own existence. In today's world of social media, where a single like or comment can swing our emotions like tides, Stoicism is more relevant than ever. It reminds us that our worth is not defined by how others see us, but by how we see ourselves. Losing confidence over criticism or becoming arrogant over praise both reveal a mind that has not yet mastered itself. The Stoic would say, "Do what is right, then let go of the outcome." Praise and blame, success and failure, all lie beyond our control. The only things truly ours are our actions and our attitude. And perhaps the greatest lesson Stoicism offers this restless age is the art of living with what is, not demanding, not resisting, simply being fully present. When we realize that happiness is not about getting what we want, but being grateful for what we have, life suddenly becomes simpler and more profound. For in the end, the greatest possession of any human being is not wealth, fame, or power, but the ability to keep a peaceful mind amid the constant changes of the world. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies a crucial idea: the distinction between what we can control and what we cannot. This is not merely a philosophical concept. It is the foundation of a conscious life. The Stoics believed that most human suffering arises from our attempt to control what was never ours to command. We cannot control the weather, aging, the actions of others, or even fate itself. But we can control our thoughts, our actions, and our reactions. When we focus our energy on what lies within our power, we find freedom. When we obsess over what lies beyond it, we forge our own chains of anxiety, frustration, and despair. Epictetus compared the human mind to a guard at a city gate. We cannot stop enemies from arriving, but we can choose whether or not to open the gate. The world will always bring trials, pain, and loss. Yet our response to them determines who we become. An insult can wound us, but only if we allow it. A failure can destroy us, but only if we see it as final. The Stoic sees it differently. Every hardship is an opportunity to forge inner strength. As steel is tempered in fire, so too is character shaped through adversity. There is a harsh but beautiful truth. The world does not care about our emotions, but it reflects our state of mind. When we look at life with resentment, we see only injustice. When we look with gratitude, we find meaning even in suffering. Stoicism does not deny sadness. It teaches us to accept it as part of existence. For within human fragility lies something eternal, the power to choose how we face life. That is what separates us from all other beings, the ability to master our reactions, even when we cannot master our circumstances. Marcus Aurelius, in the loneliness of his war camps, wrote, "If anything external causes you pain, it is not the thing itself that disturbs you, but your judgment of it." He understood that the world is not cruel. It simply follows its own laws. We suffer not because life is unfair, but because we expect it to be fair according to our own measure. When we release that expectation, we stop being victims of circumstance. When we accept the impermanence of all things, we begin to live fully in the present. And in that moment, freedom is born. Freedom from fear, from endless desire, from the invisible prisons we build within ourselves. In the modern world, with its relentless pace and unseen pressures, people have forgotten this essential truth. We are caught in cycles of comparison, expectation, and the need to prove ourselves. But the Stoic would remind us, there is nothing to prove. Our worth does not depend on how the world sees us, but on whether we live with reason, honesty, and peace. When we learn to let go of what we cannot control, we do not become weak, we become strong. For only those who understand their limits can live in true freedom. When discussing Stoic philosophy, people often refer to the idea that reason is the compass of the soul. In every situation, reason serves as the light guiding us through the darkness of emotion. The Stoics believed that human nature is not destroyed by the outside world, but by our own reactions to it. Anger, fear, despair. These are not caused by events, but by an undisciplined mind. When reason is awakened, we see things as they truly are, without exaggeration, without distortion. We no longer let emotions steer the ship. Instead, we let reason hold the rudder steady amid the waves. In that moment, we move closer to inner freedom, a kind of freedom both emperor and slave can attain if they learn to master themselves. Seneca once wrote, "There is nothing more noble than a calm mind." To him, tranquility was not indifference, but the strength of those who understand life. Only when we realize that all things, fame, wealth, power, are fleeting, do we stop letting them rule our emotions. Serenity allows us to view life like a river. We cannot hold the water in our hands, but we can learn to swim. And once we've learned to swim, we no longer fear the current. Life works the same way. We cannot change everything, but we can change how we move within it. This is the art of Stoic living, not fighting against the current, but flowing with it through awareness and will. The modern world challenges us with new kinds of storms. The pressures of work, the fear of failure, the endless comparisons of social media. We live in an age overflowing with information, yet our minds have never been emptier or more fragile. The Stoic would remind us, the root of suffering lies in forgetting what is truly within our control. We cannot dictate how others treat us, but we can choose not to let them wound us. We cannot guarantee outcomes, but we can give our best effort with sincerity. And once we've done so, we can let go, allowing the mind to return to its natural state of stillness. Marcus Aurelius, both warrior and philosopher, understood this truth better than anyone. In his Meditations, he wrote not to preach, but to keep his reason unbroken under the weight of empire. Each day he reminded himself, do not seek peace outside yourself. Peace comes when the mind no longer trembles at what lies beyond its reach. Amid the clash of swords and the howling winds of the frontier, he remained calm, knowing that every external victory was meaningless if he lost his inner one. For him, greatness was not conquering the world, but conquering the self. Thus, Stoicism is not a distant doctrine, but a compass for every age. It teaches us to live simply in a complex world, to stay calm in chaos, and to stand strong in adversity. Every moment of fear or pain is a chance to strengthen the mind. When the winds rise, instead of cursing the storm, look to see which trees still stand tall. Stoicism does not make us numb. It helps us feel more deeply. For only by accepting life as it is can we truly understand what it means to be at peace. One of the reasons Stoic philosophy transcends time is its ability to illuminate every human condition, no matter the century. In the ancient world, they faced war and violence. In the digital age, we face invisible battles, the restlessness of the mind. Though the form has changed, the root remains the same. Humanity has become disconnected from itself. We chase recognition, run after illusions of success, and tremble at the loss of control. A Stoic would smile and say, "You cannot command the waves, but you can learn to hold your oar steady." For life never stops changing, and the only certainty is impermanence. When we truly grasp this, we no longer panic in failure, nor lose ourselves in victory. Both are merely passing moments in the endless river of existence. Seneca once advised his students, "Prepare your mind for every loss, so that when it comes, you do not collapse, but smile." This was not pessimism, but clarity. When we recognize that everything can be lost, we begin to cherish it more deeply. The Stoics did not fear death, for they understood it was not an enemy, but a natural part of the cosmic order. They lived each day fully, not because they blindly trusted the future, but because they knew the present is the only thing we truly possess. And when we live with full awareness of each moment, every breath becomes proof of a life not wasted. In a world where everything is measured by numbers, money, views, followers, the Stoics chose the opposite path. They measured life by serenity. We may lose all else, but if we can remain calm, we have lost nothing. Inner peace cannot be bought, nor earned through fame. It can only be cultivated through self-understanding. When we stop fighting the world and begin to understand ourselves, that is when true maturity begins. And in that maturity, there is no space left for resentment, jealousy, or fear. Only gratitude and stillness, like a lake untouched by wind. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, "Do not look for happiness outside yourself. It lies in the way you think." To him, happiness was not a reward, but a natural result of a disciplined mind. When we meet hardship with understanding instead of fear, life becomes more meaningful. Every event, good or bad, becomes a lesson, an opportunity to grow, to refine our character. The Stoic does not wish for an easier life. They wish for the strength to face life with wisdom and courage. For true happiness does not lie in avoiding pain, but in walking through it without losing compassion. That, ultimately, is the timeless legacy of Stoic philosophy, a simple yet eternal reminder that we cannot possess the world, but we can master our minds. When we understand this, the fear of loss fades, suffering grows lighter, and every day becomes a gift to be treasured. The world outside may crumble, but the mind, if trained, can remain unmoved, like a mountain in the storm. Stoicism is not merely a philosophy. It is a path to freedom, serenity, and the deepest form of gratitude a human being can attain. What's fascinating about Stoic philosophy is that it never asks us to suppress our emotions. It teaches us to observe them as a natural part of being human. The Stoics understood that we cannot erase anger, fear, or sadness, but we can learn not to let them control our actions. Each emotion is like a wave. Resist it, and it will drown you. Understand it, and you can ride it without being swept away. This is why Stoicism is often seen as a discipline of the mind, where every hardship, every pain, every confrontation in life becomes an exercise in strengthening will and reason. When we learn to stand still amid emotional storms, we stop being victims of life and become masters of ourselves. Seneca once wrote, "The strong are not those who feel no pain, but those who turn pain into power." In our modern age, where every negative headline or unexpected event can throw our minds into turmoil, the Stoic spirit is more vital than ever. It reminds us that every disruption is merely a test of our inner control. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" the Stoic asks, "What can I learn from this?" In that single shift of perspective, suffering becomes a lesson, and adversity becomes a teacher. Not everyone can avoid the storm, but anyone can learn to become a light within it. And that is the essence of Stoic wisdom. Imagine a world where everyone learned to master their own mind. How many conflicts, hatreds, and tragedies would fade away? Most wars, grudges, and human suffering are born from minds left unchecked, egos wounded, spirits consumed by the hunger for control or revenge. The Stoic does not seek to change the world through force. They transform it by transforming themselves. And when one person attains inner calm, that peace radiates outward. True peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the ability to remain calm within it. When each individual learns tranquility, the world naturally becomes more harmonious. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his journal, "You have the power to choose, to let your mind be swept away by the storm, or to stand still and watch it pass." This is the purest form of freedom, one that requires no external condition. A person imprisoned can still be free if their mind refuses to yield, while one living in luxury may still be a slave to desire and fear. True freedom is not found outside. It lies in how we perceive life itself. When we stop seeking peace from the world and begin to find it within, we realize that every storm is temporary, but a trained mind can become a harbor that endures forever. Thus, Stoicism is not merely the philosophy of ancient sages. It is a compass for the modern soul, lost amid noise, pressure, and uncertainty. It teaches the art of slowing down in a rushing world, the art of silence in a world that shouts, and the art of observation instead of reaction. In an era where everyone wants to speak, those who can listen to themselves are the ones who truly understand life. And when we learn to stay silent amid chaos, to observe before judging, to understand before acting, that is when the Stoic spirit truly comes alive within us, not as an old doctrine, but as the living breath of modern wisdom. One of the deepest lessons Stoic philosophy offers humanity is its view of death, not as a fearful end, but as a natural part of existence. The Stoics did not fear death, for they understood that to fear the inevitable is futile. To them, death was not the opposite of life, but its completion. Just as night is not the enemy of day, but part of an eternal rhythm, death is merely the doorway to stillness after a long journey. When we learn to greet death as a companion, we begin to cherish every moment of life. In the awareness of our own finitude, we find the courage and clarity to live more fully, more consciously, and more gratefully. Seneca once wrote to a friend terrified of aging, "Death does not come to you. It has been traveling with you since the day you were born. Every breath is a step closer to the end of the path." Yet that truth, instead of bringing despair, awakens us. The Stoics did not strive to prolong life at any cost. They sought to make each day meaningful. They saw each sunrise as a gift, each sunset as a reminder of impermanence. When we live with that mindset, we stop fearing the passage of time, the onset of age, or the shadow of loss. For we understand that the worth of life lies not in its length, but in its depth, and that depth is measured by awareness, gratitude, and calmness in the face of change. Marcus Aurelius, even in his final days, wrote to himself, "Live as though you were about to depart. Let nothing disturb your mind." These were not words of despair, but of liberation. He believed that only by understanding death can one truly understand life. We fear what we do not know, but the Stoic faces it with reason and acceptance. They saw death not as a loss, but as a return, emerging back into the cosmos from which we came. Thus, they wasted no time on resentment or regret, choosing instead to use every moment to grow, wiser, calmer, more compassionate. In today's world, where people fear aging, loss, and even silence, Stoicism remains a medicine for the soul. It reminds us that all fears are illusions, for the only thing we truly possess is the present. When we cease fearing death, we begin to live authentically. When we cease fearing loss, we learn gratitude. When we cease fearing change, we begin to evolve. Life, then, is not a race away from death, but a journey toward living in harmony with our nature, peaceful, kind, and awake. For thousands of years, Stoicism has endured, not because it teaches us to conquer the world, but because it teaches us to conquer fear itself. Every sorrow, anxiety, and unrest arises from clinging to what was never ours to keep. But when we learn to release, to accept, and to flow with the order of nature, we discover that the world was never our enemy. Only the untrained mind made it one. And when the mind becomes still, the war ends. That is the greatest victory any human can achieve, the victory over the self. Stoic philosophy is not merely a path to tranquility. It is a journey of responsibility. The Stoics did not seek peace by fleeing from the world. They entered the heart of life, faced its pain, and kept their minds unshaken. They understood that self-mastery does not mean isolation, but the ability to live among others with reason and compassion. Seneca once wrote, "No one becomes wise for himself alone." The Stoic spirit calls us to live as part of a greater whole, to contribute, to serve, and to radiate calmness into the world. True peace does not come from withdrawal, but from understanding and harmonizing with others without losing oneself. Marcus Aurelius embodied that truth. He did not meditate on mountaintops. He ruled an empire in one of Rome's most turbulent eras. Plague, war, and rebellion surrounded him. Yet through it all, Marcus remained clear-minded and compassionate toward his people. He treated every hardship as a test of virtue and every right action as an answer to life itself. To him, power was not a tool for domination, but a chance to practice humanity. And in doing so, he became one of history's rarest figures, a man who held both a crown and enlightenment, a philosopher upon the throne. The Stoics treated each morning as an invitation to begin anew, and each night as a moment for honest reflection. They practiced the habit of self-examination. Did I act with integrity today? Did I let reason guide me? Did I allow emotions to take command? This discipline of introspection fueled their constant growth. They did not seek perfection, but progress, even if only by a small step each day. To them, failure was not defeat, but correction. Living consciously, moment by moment, was the true practice of mastery. And when one becomes honest with oneself, no external approval is needed. The conscience itself becomes teacher, friend, and fair judge. In today's world, where people are easily swept up by collective noise, Stoicism reminds us of the importance of independent thought. It teaches that we do not need to follow the crowd to find worth. For true value lies in living by principle, not applause. When we embody virtue, honesty, humility, courage, we fulfill our highest duty. For in the end, what we carry to our final breath is not wealth or reputation, but character. The Stoics saw virtue as a lighthouse, guiding every decision, and believed that to live in accordance with virtue is to live in harmony with nature itself. Stoicism is not a religion, nor a cold doctrine. It is an art of living, simple in essence, yet difficult in practice. It demands daily effort, to observe our thoughts, to master our reactions, to live each moment with full awareness. Like a sculptor patiently shaping marble, we must refine our inner self until it reflects the beauty of wisdom and compassion. For in the end, the purpose of Stoic philosophy is not to make us saints, but to help us become the most enlightened version of ourselves, a peaceful soul standing steady in a world that never stops moving. If Stoicism teaches humanity the art of self-mastery, then its deepest lesson lies in how one faces adversity. In this philosophy, hardship is not an enemy. It is the most demanding teacher of all. The Stoics believed that no one grows in comfort. It is through suffering, loss, and failure that the mind is trained, reason is tested, and virtue is proven. Epictetus once said, "You do not know what you are capable of until you have been tried." When life strikes them down, the Stoic does not ask, "Why me?" but "What can I learn from this?" And in that question lies true freedom. Freedom from blame, from resentment, and from the untempered fears of the heart. Seneca called adversity the school of the soul. He believed that only through enduring hardship with composure can one understand the value of peace. The Stoic does not avoid pain. He steps into it with the calm of one who knows that pain is merely part of the process of becoming. Just as iron must be heated to become steel, so too must the human spirit be tested to discover its strength. They seek not control over outcomes, but mastery over their reactions to them. And once they have learned that lesson, even failure becomes victory, for they have conquered the hardest enemy of all, themselves. Marcus Aurelius faced endless trials, unrelenting wars, deadly plagues, and the deaths of those he loved most. Yet in his private writings, there is no bitterness, only clarity and gratitude. He wrote, "Give thanks to fate for testing you, for it gives you the chance to practice virtue." To the Stoic, every event is an exercise assigned by the universe to strengthen the soul. In injustice, they learn patience. In loss, they learn detachment. In betrayal, they learn to trust themselves. Life ceases to be a chain of misfortunes and becomes a classroom. Each day, a new examination of the spirit. The modern world has forgotten the meaning of suffering. We run from it, hiding in distraction, indulgence, or denial. But the more we flee, the more it pursues us. The Stoic takes the opposite path. They face it head-on until it loses its power to wound them. They know that only by accepting pain can one transcend it, for no one can overcome what they continually avoid. When you dare to look your fear in the eye, it turns into knowledge. When you stand firm amid ruins, you discover resilience. And when you accept that everything that happens is necessary, you begin to understand serenity. That is why Stoicism endures. Not because it promises an easy life, but because it teaches us how to live bravely in a hard one. It does not paint the world in illusions. It helps us see it as it truly is, with all its sorrow and beauty. In that light, adversity is no longer punishment, but opportunity. The forge where we meet our best selves. For the Stoic understands that what matters most is not what happens to us, but who we become because of it. And if our mind remains clear and our heart kind, then no storm, however fierce, can ever defeat us. One of the most admirable aspects of Stoic philosophy is how it defines happiness. For most people, happiness is tied to things that can be touched: wealth, fame, power, or love. But for the Stoics, happiness does not come from possession. It comes from harmony. Harmony with reason, with nature, and with oneself. They believe the universe has its own order, and that humanity, a small part within it, should live in accordance with that order, rather than trying to bend it to personal will. When we stop resisting, stop demanding, and stop insisting that the universe must move according to our desires, we discover the simplest form of happiness, one as quiet and clear as still water at dawn, where the mind reflects the world as it is, without needing to change it. Seneca once said, "The wise man does not wish for things to happen as he desires, but desires them to happen as they do." That sentence captures the essence of Stoicism. In a world that teaches us to chase dreams and surpass others, the Stoic message is almost revolutionary. Live simply, be content, and stay honest with yourself. They understood that the less we crave, the freer we become. The less we depend on external things, the more peace we find within. True happiness is not in achieving everything we want, but in learning to love life, even when it falls short of perfection. When we stop comparing, stop competing, and stop searching outside ourselves, we realize that what we've been seeking has always been within: contentment. Marcus Aurelius saw happiness as an attitude, not an outcome. He believed every human being possesses the power to choose how they perceive the world, a power that nothing and no one can take away. If you are distressed, it is not because of the thing itself, but because of your judgment of it. And this you have the power to revoke. It sounds simple, yet living that truth takes lifelong practice. The human mind has a tendency to magnify pain and overlook blessings. For this reason, the Stoics practiced daily gratitude, thankful for waking up, for a healthy body, for the light of day. When gratitude becomes habit, happiness ceases to depend on circumstance. It blossoms like a wildflower growing through stone, fragile yet unbreakable, beautiful without asking for attention. In today's world, where worth is often measured by being more than someone else, Stoicism reminds us that true value lies in balance between outer achievement and inner peace. We can succeed and remain humble, fail and remain hopeful, lose, and remain grateful. Happiness, then, is not a destination, but a state of mind, one freed from the chains of comparison and fear. The Stoic does not seek validation from the world because they have learned life's greatest truth. Nothing can steal your peace unless you allow it. If each person embraced that understanding, the world itself would change. We would no longer envy others' success, resent injustice, or fear uncertainty. We would look upon everything with calm eyes, knowing that all things pass, and that what remains is what we have learned. Happiness, therefore, is not a pursuit, but a return to the self. And that is the message Stoicism leaves us. You cannot possess the world, but you can possess peace, the only thing that gives life its true meaning. One of the greatest strengths of Stoic philosophy is its ability to turn reason into an inexhaustible source of inner power. In a chaotic world, the Stoic seeks guidance not from outside forces, but from within. They see reason as a lantern that illuminates the darkness of emotion and ignorance. When anger rises, they do not react hastily. When fear approaches, they do not panic. They stand still, like a watchman at the gates of the mind, calmly discerning what lies within their control and what must be released. For they understand that humans are not harmed by events themselves, but by the way they interpret them. And in the moment we realize that truth, we hold the key to freedom. A freedom no one can give or take away. Epictetus once said, "Someone may steal from you, curse you, betray you, but they cannot harm you unless you allow them to." It sounds severe, yet it carries a profound truth. No one can enter your mind without your consent. A Stoic may lose wealth, status, or comfort, but they remain unbroken, for the most precious possession, the mind, is still intact. That is the power of self-mastery, the strength to remain upright amid storms without splintering. While the world chases external control, the Stoic seeks internal command, the quiet power of reason, patience, and compassion in the face of injustice. Seneca believed, "What makes people unhappy is not their circumstances, but the weakness of their minds in facing them." He saw humanity's tragedy not in wars or disasters, but in our surrender of reason to emotion. The Stoic trains daily to fortify the mind, a pillar standing steady amid the ocean's waves. They do not pray for calm seas. They learn to steer their ship through the storm. When the world shakes, they seek no refuge but the stillness within. They know that mental discipline is the foundation of freedom, for whoever cannot govern their own thoughts becomes a slave to their emotions. Marcus Aurelius expressed this with compassion. "When you see someone acting wrongly, do not be angry. They are merely lost. Remember, you too have wandered." His words reveal not only forgiveness, but the supremacy of reason over emotion. Instead of reacting with rage, the Stoic chooses understanding. Instead of resentment, they choose forgiveness. Instead of blaming life, they choose right action. Through calm and clarity, they transcend conflict, keeping the light of reason alive amid the darkness of turmoil. They do not seek to defeat others, only to master themselves. And that is the only victory that truly matters. In today's world, where minds are easily swept away by the storms of information, social media, and fleeting desires, Stoicism is a reminder to return to stillness. It teaches that reacting quickly is not intelligence, it is instinct. True wisdom lives in the pause, in that single breath before emotion takes hold, when reason has a chance to speak. When we can do this, we cease to be controlled by the world and become our own guides. And perhaps In an age where everyone shouts to be heard, the one who remains silent and observant is, in truth, the strongest of all. Stoic philosophy does not stop at mastering emotions. It goes deeper into the art of living in harmony with human nature itself. To the Stoics, living according to nature does not mean resignation, but alignment, moving in rhythm with the universal order, where every being has its purpose and place. They saw the cosmos as one vast, living organism, and each person as a cell within it. When a cell functions in harmony with the rest, the body thrives. But when it acts only for itself, the body becomes sick. Thus, the Stoic does not live solely for personal gain. They live for the balance of the whole. And within that service, they find life's most profound meaning. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You were born not to sleep, not to indulge, not to be angry, but to act rightly." It is a simple yet powerful reminder that the worth of a human life is not measured by its length, but by its integrity. The Stoic finds joy not in indulgence, but in usefulness. They believe happiness arises not from what we receive, but from what we give, freely and sincerely. When our actions are guided by reason and goodwill, the outcome matters little. Peace of mind comes from knowing we acted with virtue. True serenity does not come from success, but from integrity. From knowing that, even if the world never acknowledges us, we have remained faithful to what is right. Seneca, in his letters, urged his friends to see hardship as an opportunity to practice virtue. When we can help someone, it is a chance to practice kindness. When we are betrayed, it is a lesson in forgiveness. When we face loss, it is a test of resilience. In this way, the Stoic transforms every challenge into a form of training. They do not pray for an easy life. They pray for the strength to endure whatever comes. Virtue, they taught, is not built in words, but in actions, in the small, consistent choices made every day. And in those choices, character is forged, steady as stone amid the waves of time. In today's world, a society obsessed with speed and results, Stoicism offers a much-needed counterbalance, patience and depth. It reminds us that greatness is not found in doing more, but in doing rightly. A small act, a kind word, a moment of compassion, a measured response, can ripple outward, touching lives unseen. The Stoics believed influence comes not from display, but from quiet moral strength. When your actions and your words align, you no longer need to declare who you are. The world will see it. And so, Stoicism is not merely a path of reason, but also a path of compassion. It teaches that wisdom and kindness are not opposites, but companions. Like two wings of the same bird. Reason allows us to understand. Compassion allows us to forgive. Together, they make us whole. We cease living in opposition to the world and begin to live in harmony with it, calmly, wisely, and lovingly. And when we live this way, no matter how brief our time may be, life becomes full, for we have lived true to nature, true to the essence of a luminous soul in this vast, ever-moving universe. Stoic philosophy teaches that one cannot find peace without first accepting the limits of one's own power. We often strive to break every barrier, believing we can control fate, grasp the future, and direct the actions of others. But the Stoics remind us that true freedom does not lie in being able to do everything. It lies in knowing what is enough. When we recognize that some things cannot be changed, suffering begins to ease. When we stop demanding that the world be perfect, we start to see beauty in its imperfections. And when we learn to let go at the right moment, we discover a gentle kind of strength, one born not from control, but from understanding. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to be happy, let things happen as they do." It sounds simple, yet it is one of the hardest lessons in life. We suffer because we want things to be different. We wish the past had changed. We want others to think like us. We hope the future unfolds according to plan. But the universe does not move by the will of a single person. When we learn to accept the natural flow of events, we free ourselves from resentment. Like water, we do not resist the current. We bend, adapt, and flow around the stones in our path. Such flexibility is not weakness, but wisdom, for only strong minds have the courage to accept what they cannot change. In the midst of brutal wars, Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "If I cannot change a thing, let it teach me patience." To him, every hardship was a lesson from the universe, a reminder of human limitation. He did not fight against fate or curse the times he lived in. Instead, he found serenity in doing his best and releasing the rest. That acceptance gave him clarity and compassion, even in chaos. He knew we cannot control the wind, but we can adjust our sails. And once we do, every storm becomes a lesson in how to steer our lives with grace. Seneca too wrote, "Regard every setback as part of a greater plan you do not yet understand." His words reflect the Stoic faith in the order of the cosmos. They believed everything happens for a reason, not always one we comprehend, but one necessary for the soul's growth. By trusting in that order, the Stoic lets go of bitterness and finds meaning even in misfortune. They do not ask, "Why did this happen to me?" but rather, "How can I become better because of this?" And with each honest answer to that question, they move closer to peace, a peace born not from circumstance, but from harmony with the eternal rhythm of nature. Acceptance, then, is not surrender. It is the first act of wisdom. When we accept that the world does not belong to us, it can no longer overwhelm us. When we accept that others may be wrong, we no longer let them wound us. When we accept that nothing can be held forever, we finally live fully in the present moment. That is what Stoicism teaches, that peace does not come from controlling the world, but from embracing it with an open heart. And when we bow humbly to the laws of nature, we are not weak. We stand at the very summit of human understanding. In the Stoic journey of life, one eventually realizes that everything is borrowed. From the first breath to the last drop of life, all belongs to the universe. We own nothing, not people, not possessions, not even time. We are merely allowed to experience them for a fleeting moment before returning them. The Stoics viewed life as a grand play in which each person is assigned a role. When the curtain falls, there is no resentment over whether the role was long or short, only the question of whether it was played with integrity. Epictetus once said, "If you are assigned the role of a beggar, play it well. If that of a ruler, act with dignity. But remember, it is only a role. It is not you." This awareness allowed them to walk freely through life, neither blinded by success nor broken by hardship. Marcus Aurelius, though emperor of Rome, constantly reminded himself, "You are but a small soul carrying a corpse, given a brief time in an infinite universe." He knew that power, triumph, and glory would fade like dust in the wind. What endures is how one lives each moment, with honesty, compassion, and calm. The Stoic does not let fame or position define their worth. Virtue alone does that. To them, reputation is the hollow echo of the crowd, while virtue is the true voice of the soul. Thus, They need no validation, no applause, only the quiet certainty of living rightly. In that simplicity lies a nobility higher than any throne could bestow. Seneca advised, "When you realize you own nothing, you will fear losing nothing." That is the essence of freedom. Most human suffering arises from the fear of loss, of people, of wealth, of power, of image. But once we understand that nothing ever truly belonged to us, we are no longer bound by it. The Stoics did not teach detachment from love. They taught loving without possession, enjoying without dependence. They cherished life the way one admires a sunset, knowing it will fade, yet savoring it fully. They saw impermanence not as cruelty, but as beauty, for only the fleeting can be precious. When we learn to love without demanding permanence, our love becomes purer, freer, and infinitely deeper. Stoicism also teaches how to face loss with grace. When someone departs, when a dream dissolves, when time steals youth, the Stoic does not curse fate, but gives thanks. "Thank you for letting me have it, even for a while." They see loss not as punishment, but as a natural rhythm of existence, a reminder that all things pass. What remains is not the object lost, but the wisdom gained. In that understanding, pain softens, and even in farewells, a quiet light of gratitude remains. For the Stoic believes, the universe never takes without also giving. Every ending carries a lesson. Ultimately, Stoic philosophy leads us to a simple truth. To live freely, one must learn to let go. Letting go is not losing. It is releasing oneself from the chains of fear. When we stop clinging, we begin to truly live. When we stop fearing loss, we begin to truly love. When we stop trying to control, we begin to truly feel life's flow. And in that moment, we discover what the Stoics knew millennia ago, that while the world is not ours to possess, it is ours to live in harmony with. And that harmony, that freedom of the soul, is the greatest liberty a human being can ever attain. Stoic philosophy teaches that humanity's greatest enemy is not the world outside, but the untrained mind within. When the mind is weak, we see everything through fear, anger, and impatience. But when the mind is strong, we see that same world through calm and clarity. The Stoic views each day as a battle, not against others, but against themselves, against laziness, selfishness, resentment, and endless desire. They believe that the only true and lasting victory is mastery over the self. For once, a person has command of their own mind. Nothing can defeat them. Not fear, not fame, not even loss. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "The mind has the power to turn everything into an opportunity." What breaks others becomes training for the Stoic. When insulted, they practice forgiveness. When they fail, they strengthen perseverance. When lonely, they learn to sit with themselves without fear. To them, life is not a series of misfortunes, but a lifelong training ground for the soul. Like a blacksmith tempering iron in fire, the human mind must face heat, pressure, and fracture to become resilient and luminous. For without fire, iron remains soft, and without challenge, one never knows the depth of their own strength. Seneca emphasized, "There is no path to virtue that does not pass through hardship." He saw life as constant training, where every failure is practice, and every sorrow a teacher. The Stoic does not flee from reality. They walk directly into it with courage. They understand that adversity is inevitable, but how one responds is a choice. That choice, to hold reason firm instead of surrendering to chaos, is what defines human dignity. When one overcomes the storm within, they do not merely become stronger, they understand joy itself more deeply. That happiness is not the absence of pain, but the peace of living through it with grace. Epictetus taught, "Do not wish for events to happen as you want them to, but wish for them to happen as they do, and your life will go well." It sounds like resignation, yet it is the highest form of courage. Acceptance is not weakness. It is the wisdom to know one's limits while still choosing to move forward. When we release the obsession to control outcomes, we begin to breathe freely. When we trust the order of nature, we see meaning even in what once felt random. The Stoic does not escape life, they live fully within it, like a warrior in the desert, knowing that every sandstorm reveals who truly has strength. Thus, Stoicism does not make people cold, it makes them profound. It does not distance us from life, it teaches us to engage with it consciously. When we can look at events with serenity, at others with compassion, and at ourselves with forgiveness, we come close to the enlightenment the ancient Stoics knew. They never promised eternal happiness, but they offered something greater, the power to create peace in any condition, through an awakened, disciplined, and loving mind. And perhaps, in today's noisy and chaotic world, that is the most extraordinary gift a human can possess. Stoic philosophy does not see humans as being separate from the universe, but as parts of a vast natural order. The Stoics believed that everything, from a grain of sand to a distant star, exists for a reason, and that true peace comes only when one lives in harmony with this order. They called it logos, the rational structure of the cosmos, the force guiding every motion and event. When we resist it, we suffer. When we flow with it, we are free. Thus, Stoic living is not passive resignation, but active harmony, doing what is right within our power and accepting the rest as part of a larger whole beyond our control. Like a sailor who learns to set his sail with the wind instead of against it, the Stoic finds tranquility by moving with the currents of nature, not fighting them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything that happens, happens as it should. If you look closely, you will see order even in chaos." This is not a justification for suffering, but the awakened insight of one who recognizes purpose in every event. The Stoic looks at the world through the eyes of understanding, seeing not only what is painful, but the lesson hidden within. Betrayal teaches endurance. Pain teaches compassion. Loss teaches gratitude. And even when life seems to collapse, the Stoic trusts that the universe still moves according to a higher logic, one the human mind may not yet grasp. Seneca described life as a river. One can never step into the same water twice, for both the person and the river have changed. The Stoic understands that change is the only constant. Everything is born, exists, and fades, and precisely because of that, everything is precious. Instead of fearing impermanence, they embrace it as an essential rhythm of existence. Without death, life would lose meaning. Without loss, there would be no appreciation. Without suffering, we would never understand joy. Thus, rather than resisting impermanence, the Stoic learns to live within it, to love fully, knowing that all things eventually pass. Epictetus taught, "You are an actor in a play directed by the universe. Whether your role is long or short, play it well." This teaching cultivates humility before life. The Stoic does not ask why they were born rich or poor, in peace or in turmoil, but instead, how can I live rightly within this circumstance? This mindset gives purpose even to hardship. To the Stoic, every action, a kind word, a good thought, a just choice, contributes to the harmony of humanity. They live by the belief that if each person acts with virtue, the world itself will improve naturally. Seen in this light, Stoicism is not merely a moral doctrine, but a philosophy of connection. It reminds us that no one truly exists in isolation. Every thought, word, and deed ripples outward, touching others in ways we may never see. That is why the Stoic lives with awareness and responsibility. To speak truthfully, to act justly, to live meaningfully, not for recognition, but to move in harmony with the universe. They know that when the soul is clear, the cosmos reflects that clarity back. And in that harmony, loneliness dissolves, for one realizes they belong to something eternal, a vast, living whole where every being, no matter how small, has purpose. When one understands Stoic philosophy deeply, it becomes clear that humanity's greatest power does not lie in controlling the world, but in choosing our attitude toward it. Every event, whether good or bad, is neutral. It is our perception that turns it into destruction or healing. The Stoic lives with that awareness every day. They do not wish for a life without storms. They wish for a mind strong enough to walk through storms without losing peace. When the world trembles, they do not seek refuge in escape, but in their own mind. And when the mind stands firm like a mountain, even the fiercest storm becomes only a passing breeze. That is the freedom all Stoic sages pursue. Freedom from being ruled by fear, desire, or the judgment of others. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "When someone angers you, remember that they act as they believe is right. If you understand this, your anger will fade." This simple statement holds a profound treasure of compassion. The Stoic does not see enemies as evil, but as unawakened. They do not repay hatred with hatred, for they know resentment only deepens wounds. Instead, they choose to understand, to forgive, and to remain calm. For in the moment we lose our temper, we give another person power over our mind. But when we forgive, we do it not for others. We do it to set ourselves free. That is the gentle strength only a Stoic heart can hold. Seneca wrote, "A wise man does not resent, envy, or hate, because he knows that everyone is fighting battles he cannot see." This is a reminder of compassion, the foundation of Stoic humanity. The Stoics do not train reason alone. They cultivate empathy. For a sharp mind without kindness is but a blade in blind hands. Thus, the Stoic never separates intellect from goodness. They know that one cannot truly understand life without loving others. And when they help, they expect no reward. For right action itself is the reward. Virtue needs no audience. It shines quietly on its own. What makes the Stoic remarkable is their ability to stay calm amid praise and criticism alike. In a world where fame is mistaken for worth, they walk in silence. They are not swayed by flattery, nor broken by judgment. They understand that others see only the surface, while they alone know who they are within. Marcus Aurelius advised, "If someone speaks ill of you, look to see if it is true. If it is, correct yourself. If it is not, smile." This perspective reflects true maturity, placing truth above ego. The Stoic does not argue to prove themselves right. They let their actions speak. And when the mind is no longer governed by the opinions of others, one becomes truly free. The Stoic moves through life like a tranquil traveler, carrying no burdens of the past, nor anxieties for the future, but walking steadily in the present. They do not let life slip away in regret or worry, but live each moment as if it were all they had. They know that time is life's most precious possession, and every second is a chance to do what is right, to live with meaning. Seneca once wrote, "Life is not short, but we make it short by wasting time." That is why the Stoic lives with awareness, not because they fear death, but because they honor life. To them, each day is a gift, each breath a miracle, and each moment of stillness an opportunity for the soul to touch true serenity. Stoic philosophy teaches that a person's strength is not measured by what they possess, but by how calmly they can stand when everything is taken away. In a world full of uncertainty, the Stoic relies on one thing alone: reason. They see reason as a lighthouse in the dark, guiding their course even when every direction seems lost. When others panic, they observe. When others react emotionally, they pause. When the world descends into chaos, they find order within. And because of that, they are never swept away by the instability of the times. They understand that peace is not destroyed by events themselves, but by how we respond to them. Stoicism does not promise eternal calm, but it gives us the greatest tool for walking through the storm unbroken: the strength of right thought. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Do not let your mind be troubled by things beyond your control. Remember, everything you see is merely your perception of it." In that single truth lies immense wisdom. The world does not make us suffer. It is how we interpret the world that does. Two people may endure the same hardship, yet one despairs while the other remains composed. The difference lies in the mind. The Stoic trains themselves to observe their thoughts as if standing on the riverbank, watching the current flow, to know when the mind is being swept away and when to stop. They understand that emotions are guests, while the mind is home. If that home is kept in order, even the fiercest storms of emotion will eventually pass. Seneca taught, "Nothing is truly an evil thing for the person who knows how to use it well." At first it seems paradoxical, yet it captures the essence of Stoic wisdom. For in their view, no event is purely bad. Every one of them is raw material for growth. Loss teaches gratitude. Failure teaches humility. Pain teaches resilience. When we learn to treat adversity as a teacher, fear loses its hold on us. To the Stoic, life is not a series of misfortunes, but a series of opportunities to train the mind, to expand perspective, to love more wisely. And once we begin to see life as a journey of learning, even suffering becomes a companion, not an enemy. Epictetus said, "No one can harm you unless you allow it." He did not say this to deny pain, but to remind us that true power rests in our own hands. We cannot control what others do, but we can control how we respond. We cannot stop the rain, but we can learn to walk through it without resentment. Freedom, in the Stoic sense, is not the absence of hardship. It is the independence of the soul amid hardship. And when we grasp this truth, life opens up. We are no longer bound by fear, ruled by desire, or swayed by praise and blame. We become the true masters of our lives, regardless of what happens outside us. In the end, Stoicism is not a call to suppress emotion, but an invitation to return to our natural balance. It teaches us to love without clinging, to live fully without attachment, to do what is right without seeking reward. The Stoic does not reject joy. They simply refuse to be ruled by it. They do not fear pain. They refuse to let it destroy them. In every moment, they choose awareness. Like a tightrope walker, never leaning too far to either side, but walking steadily in the center. And in doing so, they discover what humanity has sought since the dawn of consciousness: an inner stillness that no force can shake. If there is one thing that sets Stoic philosophy above all others of its time, It is its power to help human beings stand firm amid life's contradictions. Stoicism does not ask us to become saints. It simply teaches us how to awaken. The Stoic understands that life will never be purely joy or sorrow, but a weave of both. They accept this as naturally as breathing, inhaling and exhaling, pleasure and pain, gain and loss, all part of the rhythm of existence. Once we stop trying to erase half of life, we begin to experience its wholeness. Happiness, in the Stoic sense, does not mean avoiding pain, but learning to live with it, calmly, without bitterness or despair. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You cannot be happy if your soul is disturbed by things beyond your control." That is the foundation of inner freedom. Modern humans often imprison themselves in anxiety, worrying about the future, grieving the past, resenting others for being different. But for the Stoic, happiness exists only in the present moment. The instant one realizes that nothing can truly take away their peace of mind unless they allow it. They train the mind to be like a mirror, reflecting everything, but clinging to nothing. When an event occurs, they observe it, understand it, and let it pass. In that letting go, they find strength. Not the strength of control, but the strength of timely surrender. Seneca said, "You cannot master yourself if you remain a slave to your emotions." Modern life, despite all its tools, still binds us with invisible chains. Fear of failure, addiction to approval, obsession with comparison. Stoicism helps us break those chains through understanding. Once we recognize that emotions are reactions, not identities, we learn to watch them drift by like clouds, appearing, changing, disappearing, without resistance. This calmness does not make one cold, it makes one compassionate. Because when we are no longer trapped in our inner storms, we can finally see others clearly. The Stoic does not seek to conquer people, only the chaos within. And when the mind becomes still, the outer world follows. Epictetus taught, "You cannot learn anything while your mouth keeps speaking and your mind keeps shouting." The Stoic sees silence as the root of wisdom. In today's world, where everyone shouts to be heard, silence becomes an act of quiet rebellion. The Stoics' silence is not indifference, but awareness. They remain silent to listen, to the world, to others, to their own inner voice. Because only in stillness can one hear the whisper of reason, the soft, unwavering guidance that keeps us from losing ourselves in the crowd. And once we master the art of silence, we no longer need to prove anything, for we already know our worth. In the end, Stoicism teaches that every path, long or short, leads us back to ourselves. Every philosophy, every faith, every lesson is but a mirror reflecting that journey. The Stoics never promise perfect happiness, but they offer clarity, the kind that allows us to create meaning and joy in each moment. They remind us, the world can take everything from you, except your mind, unless you surrender it. And in this turbulent age, perhaps that is the greatest treasure, to keep our reason clear, our heart kind, and our spirit steady amid the endless current of life. For in the end, the only thing we truly own is not the world, but our own soul. When the journey through Stoic philosophy comes to its close, we realize that what the ancient sages left behind was never meant to be memorized. It was meant to illuminate. From Epictetus, the slave who found freedom within his own mind, to Seneca, the nobleman who discovered peace amid loss, to Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who learned humility in the midst of glory. They all walked different paths, yet met at the same truth. Man does not possess the world. He possesses only his mind. And once the mind is mastered, everything else follows. What they left behind is not dry philosophy, but the art of living, the art of keeping one's soul radiant even when the world grows dark. For the light of wisdom never fades. It only waits for us to return and see it again. The Stoics teach us how to live in the world without being consumed by it. They teach us to work among ambition without losing kindness, to love without attachment, to endure without bitterness, to succeed without arrogance, to fail without despair. Every small decision, how we speak to others, how we speak to ourselves, is an opportunity to practice Stoicism. No one is born calm, but anyone can learn it through experience, through each moment of anger restrained, each sorrow transformed by understanding. And in time, we see that Stoicism is not a path of detachment, but of courage. The courage to live truthfully, to face everything without losing the goodness at our core. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "You have the power to live well right now." Do not let philosophy remain mere words. That message still echoes today, a wake-up call to a humanity lost in noise and illusion. For Stoicism does not live in books. It lives in every breath, every reaction, every choice to stay calm instead of angry, to understand instead of judge, to love instead of fear. When we live that way, we stop being mere observers of life and become its conscious participants, steady, peaceful, complete. And when the world feels overwhelming, we can remember this. Everything begins with a single, simple truth. Master your mind and let nature take care of the rest. Seneca once wrote, "Live as if you were already dead and have been granted one more day to do what is right." Guided by this spirit, the Stoic greets each day as a gift, each breath as a chance to renew the soul. They do not dwell in yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's fears. They live in the now, where reason meets gratitude. They understand that life need not be perfect to be meaningful. If each morning we wake with the resolve to be kinder than yesterday, to love more deeply, to stay calmer amid the waves of life, that alone is a great triumph. Thus, Stoicism is not a relic of the past, but a voice for the present, a reminder to live consciously, for our mind is a universe we are free to shape. And as this journey ends, we understand that the miracle of Stoicism lies not in knowing its teachings, but in living them. When the world collapses, we choose calm. When people change, we choose integrity. When loss surrounds us, we choose gratitude. For in the end, the only thing we truly possess is how we live today. The world will keep changing, humanity will keep struggling, but Stoicism will endure, like a flame that refuses to die in the long night of history. And if there is only one truth to remember, let it be this timeless one. You cannot possess the world, but you can master yourself. In that mastery, humankind touches eternal freedom, a freedom no empire, no time, no fate can ever take away.